Hi everyone, thank you for coming to the next installment of Junction City News. I am Regina Mahoney, the City Manager for the City of Essex Junction. And tonight I am excited, we've got some members of our Governance Committee here with us. So I have Gabrielle Smith and Thomas Cohen. And we are going to talk through a bit about what the Governance Committee has been up to and talk about some ways that folks can get engaged and provide some input into the project. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me. Okay, so let's get going. Please begin by reviewing what the Governance Committee why the Governance Committee was formed.
Yeah. So as a lot of people will remember, it was about 3 years ago, and there was an initiative to vote to separate or not from the town of Essex and become a city, which is what's required of us if we separate from our township. So to stay focused on that really big decision, it was presented to the community that let's focus on that. What do you want, separate or not? And if we do decide to separate, then within 3 years, we will then look at are there any subsequent charter changes that we would like to have as a result of becoming a city. And so that is why we're all here. There's 9 of us who volunteered. Some are community members, and some of those community members are also from the City Council. So we're here to look at some of those key elements of a charter that have to do with the way that we govern to determine what do we feel for our community as it is separated now, uniquely our own self here? What matters to this community, and what are some of those elements that might affect our charter that we would need to then be presented to the community for a vote eventually.
Okay, great. Okay, so what has the Governance Committee been working on since formed?
So we had our first meeting back in March, and we've been busy really diving in to understand what are the key different governance topics, what that would affect our city, what are some of the definitions, what are each of our committee's members' experiences with different forms of government, and how have we experienced them both in Essex Junction and other places we've lived, and what else can we learn through research as well. So we also surveyed current and former city council members to get their perspective. And we spent a lot of time interviewing, connecting with other municipalities that are similar to Essex Junction and speak with their mayor or their city manager and a member of the city council or the town select board to understand about their governance models and practices. So we really wanted to explore the differences between those communities, Winooski, St. Albans, Montpelier, Rutland City, Barrytown, Williston, Brattleboro, and Burlington, and understand how mayoral powers, election methods, and public engagement strategies differ. Those findings and what we learned from them really helped us in terms of identifying what approaches might work best for Essex Junction. Relative to Essex Junction's size, to our unique character and our community values, what can we learn from those communities and apply those to our recommendations. So we have several different action items currently under review. So we're looking at things such as should the leader of the city council be a president or mayor? How many city councilors should be there? How long city councilor terms should be, and whether or not there should be term limits, and how much city councilors should get paid, and should the city charter be reviewed on a regular basis?
Great. And it must be interesting, so we are the 9th newest city in the state of Vermont. Do I have that right? 10th?
We were the 10th, but we won't bore people with the list. I don't know. Let's see if we can quiz ourselves off the top of our heads, yeah. But yeah.
So interesting because it's helpful to get a sense of what other cities, which we don't have many of in Vermont, to really be thinking about these things.
Right.
So that's great that we're able to have some input from those other communities.
And they're all very different, actually. It's not as if we're stepping into a well-trod model. Like this is how cities work in Vermont. Yeah. They're all different sizes. You know, Virgins, quite small. Burlington, obviously, a whole nother beast. So trying to do that with some thoughtfulness to really see what applied to us and what maybe didn't suit us.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so let's go into a little bit more detail on these particular action items that the Governance Committee has been looking at. So the first topic is leader of the City Council.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm going to describe this in the best way that I can sum up, which is really we looked at essentially kind of three forms of government. So one is having one that is really what we have now, which is the having a leader of the council with a professional municipal manager, which is you, and then looking at communities that have what's called in some places I've heard it called strong mayor and weak mayor. So a strong mayor is what we think of as Rutland and especially Burlington, where the mayor is elected by the people. It's a full-time gig. You are both the mayor of the community, but you're also managing the day-to-day along with a professional manager that they have in Burlington. Rutland, that person is both. So it's someone who's elected directly by the people to serve in that more full-time capacity. And then there's other examples where the mayor is playing still a significant role, but it's not a full-time job. It is the leader of the council, more similar to what we have here. We have a president, but this person is a mayor. They're elected directly by the people to be the leader of the council. That is their job. The difference with what we have now is our president is elected by the council itself to be their leader. And I think for me, the distinction that feels the most important in that is whether the leader of the council is when the leader is elected by the people, you're running for that job. You're running to be in that job for a specific period of time. So other council seats will change. You remain in that position until the end of your term, and you may or may not be someone who is a good facilitator, someone who has the trust of your colleagues, someone that who's really good at helping to move things through, interact with the city manager. So that is the president is someone who is elected by their colleagues to facilitate meetings, to move things forward, and to play somewhat of a public-facing role. So there's overlaps and there's distinctions between those models. We're recommending to the community that we consider the part-time, I'll call it the part-time mayor model, or staying with what we have already, which is the president model. The primary reason we're really not recommending having a full-time mayor is because we really, all of us unanimously felt that having a professional municipal manager was critical to the functioning of our city. And paying two people full-time job to run in sort of somewhat parallel roles, there would be distinctions, of course, between having a strong mayor to work with and being the city manager. But we couldn't see going the route of, say, Rutland, where that person is the full-time mayor and also. So you're hoping you can elect somebody who can do both, I guess, which is a big job. And that's so we felt that was not the model for us to recommend to our community.
Okay.
And I would just add too that one thing we looked at with all these different governance action items was how is the status quo working? And I think there was a lot of positive feedback on some of these what kind of consider the status quo, kind of the existing model of governance, the technocratic nature of the administration, and how they're being responsive to citizen needs. And that's definitely something we wanted to make sure we emphasize. We don't want to just change for change's sakes, but make sure it's actually going to fill a missing need or void in the city.
And I will say, we did hear good things from mayors of other communities where they were the part-time mayor, and they saw a lot of benefits to being a part-time mayor. So that's that kind of weighed in, and that I think there were some of us who felt like the community's kind of wanting to weigh in on this. Like, we became a city. Don't we get a mayor when we become a city? We could choose to do that, but it's also our job to share the pros and cons of both. And I think there are pros and cons to both of those things, both of those options.
Okay. Great. So the second topic is the number of city council members.
Yes. So currently we have 5 members of our city council, and we looked at what would it mean if we reduced or expanded that number. And after the research that we did and the conversations we've had, we're kind of looking at 2 options at the moment. One is to keep the status quo of 5 members on our city council, and one would be to increase that to 7. And there are some different trade-offs between those 2 options. On the one hand, with the 5-member council, it can be easier to reach consensus and make decisions. It could be more efficient as a decision-making body in itself, and it needs maybe fewer resources and support, having 5 members. If you go up to 7 members, you may need some additional resources and administrative support. It could be harder to reach consensus, but at the same time, that could bring new voices to the table. It could allow more individuals to serve who are interested in stepping up and doing that for our city. And it could also help kind of divide some of the tasks or subcommittee responsibilities that city council members have. So those are the kind of the 2 options that we're weighing at the moment.
Okay. So then the next 2 topics deal with the actual term length and potential limits to terms for those city council members.
Yeah. And I would say that, I think a lot of people have heard about this concept of term limits, which is we would predetermine as a community how many times you get to run. 2, 3, 4. We would name it in the charter, and once it's in the charter, that is the way it stays until if and when we change the charter again. We have not, in recent memory, had people who have stayed on the city council or village trustees for a very long time. But in the not too distant past, there are people out there who will remember when people, not just one, multiple people, 20 years, 30 years. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But I think there is something to be said for, again, this is pros and cons. On the pro side of term limits is if there's an incumbent running, especially in a community this small, you have name recognition, unless there's something sort of disruptive happening, odds are it's going to be easier for you to be reelected than someone who might be brand new to the community or just has less name recognition. And so we really are weighing those 2 sides of that coin, right? Term limits can also look like I don't vote for an incumbent after 3 terms because I don't vote for it. I want to impose a term limit. So I think there is, again, like many of our choices that we're bringing forward to the community, there are pros and cons to each version of this, whether you have a limit or not. Interestingly enough, I learned that the place where there might be a need to formalize term limits is actually on committees, especially some of those decision-making committees like the Planning Commission or some of these other statutory commissions. And there can be people who do stay on those commissions for a long period of time, regardless of the reason. So those are 2 different questions, whether or not those statutory committees, which are in the charter, I think, is it just Planning Commission in our community?
Planning Commission and Development Review Board
And
are
then
both
Development
in the
Review.
charter.
So those are the 2 that we would, if we want as a community to limit the number of terms a person could serve, that would need to go into our charter if we want to make that change.
Okay, so length of term.
Yep. And then the length of term, this is one of those examples where initially, and I think many of us would still argue, if it's not fixed, don't broke it, right? So we currently serve on 3 years. They have 3 years, and everyone is, there's a stagger, so not everybody is turning over in the same year. We did talk to several other communities that had different term lengths than ours. So some of them had 2 years, some of them had different terms, 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year. And we decided to rule out the 1 year option because we really felt that was not long enough to get your feet under you. 2 year option is one that we're bringing forward, yes, as an option, right? 2 years?
I think we were thinking about having some 3 and some 2.
Yeah.
So we heard that from a few
having
different communities.
that mix, right? So if somebody's thinking about it and wants to get involved, 2 years might sound less daunting than 3, and again, could really help get people stepping into public service in that way.
I think the other interesting thing about the staggered terms, maybe it feels a little harder to understand in some ways because it's a little more complicated than fixed terms, but then someone is up for re-election every single year or election. So
Yeah.
you're always voting every year on a
Yeah.
member of the council.
Yeah. I think, am I right, Regina, that the town of Essex has a staggered? Do they have different term lengths?
That is a good question. I don't know about the
trying
town
to
of
remember.
Essex.
Yeah.
Certainly other communities have a variety of them.
Of lengths.
Yeah, and our 3-year terms are staggered, so the different seats do come up, but that we don't have any 2-year terms, which really, I think, does open up that opportunity for people who haven't been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Or have never stepped in. Like 3 years does feel like,
It is a long time.
yeah, it's a little scary. Okay, so the next 3 topics are really all on the topic of stipends for the city council members.
Yeah, and so the current situation is each city council member receives $2,500 a year as a stipend. That's supposed to recognize their many hours of work and service that they provide for our community. And it can be a way to help supplement for babysitters or lost wages or subsidize some food that the individual may need. But we also recognize that it's not amounts commensurate with the work that's being done. It still is a volunteer position. We're looking at ways to increase that stipend and what that would mean. That could attract a broader pool of candidates to the job. It could better reflect the time and effort that individuals are putting into the work. And so, obviously that costs some additional resources from the city. And those are the different things we're weighing in terms of the overall amount. There's a couple other things we're looking at too related to stipends. One is, should the leader of the city council get more than the other members? That leader has more responsibilities, has other duties, takes more time, and currently is paid the same amount. And so there could be an argument, and some communities do this, where the leader of the council gets a little more to compensate for that additional time.
Okay.
The third thing we're looking at for city council members is how are we structuring when and how those increases take effect? And so there are kind of 2 options. One, the current process is it can increase with the budget each year. We do foresee a conflict of interest there where existing city council members are supporting or voting on or initiating an increase that would affect themselves. And so historically it just isn't really done that much. And so another option is to put it in the charter. So that allows it to be insulated from that conflict of interest. It could define the rate or how much it could be adjusted. It could be tied to inflation, for example. I think the other trade-off from there is that's harder to change, right? Because the charter there's more work that goes into changing the charter than to changing the budget each year.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. So, given it's tricky to change the charter, that's the next topic that the governance committee has been thinking about. So, concept around a set schedule for updating the charter.
Yeah, this was really inspired by a conversation we had, I don't remember which community, who I think it might have been Brattleboro, but I'm not sure, who they have a charter review committee that needs to convene every 10 years, I think, to complete a review of the charter and ensure that the community is still feeling comfortable with what is in the charter. Is there anything in the community that there's been some interest in addressing? And rather than putting that, certainly as we all experienced here in the village of Essex Junction, you can change a charter, right? But it's a lot of work. And so if it's set statutorily, then that process has to happen. And so it does give people the chance to really reflect on that. One of the things that some of us really liked about that process is, speaking for myself, this has been a big learning curve. I've been involved in local governance for a long time, and I've been involved here for a while, and I'm learning new things all the time about the charter process and about our governance. So I do think it could be interesting to have that be something the community needs to think about every 10 years and really reflect on, wow, is this how we want this to work? Or, wow, we tried that and now we want to change it. We didn't like it that way. So I think there is, I think that's really an interesting possibility for the community to consider.
I'm curious if it was Brattleboro that has this. I presume it doesn't prohibit other changes to come along the way if it happens to be, you're on year 6 and a change maybe wants to go forward before the process.
I don't know that the community, there's costs involved with having the review committee because, as you well know, committees like that need to be staffed.
Yeah.
So it could certainly work a different way. It could be members of the community who get a petition going and do it that more traditional way that exists, that's available to anyone to initiate. So I don't see anything that would preclude that, but I did not ask that question. Good question.
Okay, so what happens now?
Yeah, so we're really focused currently on our community engagement approach to this work, to making sure that we're getting a lot of public input from the community, from residents of Essex Junction. That's why we're here today, to try to share out what we're learning and to get some feedback on that. So we have an upcoming community conversation on Wednesday, November 5th from 6:30 to 8:30 at Essex Junction, Recreation and Parks at 75 Maple Street. It's open to everyone, free to attend, no prior registrations required. And so we're hoping that folks will show up, residents will have a chance to hear an overview of the committee's findings, ask questions, and share their thoughts. For individuals who couldn't make that time for that in-person gathering, we're also doing a virtual gathering the next night, November 6th, from 6:30 to 8 on Zoom. And so that'll be another chance to hear from members of the governance committee, hear about what we're doing, ask some questions, provide some feedback. The third option for folks is to complete a survey that we have up on the Essex Junction website that can give input and feedback on all the topics that we discussed today.
Great.
After that, we'll be compiling a report and delivering it to the City Council, I believe, on December 10th.
Yeah, awesome.
I would also add that, that all of us are your neighbors on the committee, so you could certainly ask us. You can reach out to us, or if you don't know us or to connect with one of us, reach out to Brad Luck and he will forward it on. And we're here to do the best that we can to help our neighbors participate in this process. And it can all be some of it can feel pretty wonky. And in the beginning you might wonder, why is that something that I even need to be thinking about? And given that there's so many topics, it may be that there's only a few that you find you connect with and really want to have an opinion on, and that's fine. You don't have to get involved in every aspect of it, but any part of it that you're interested in as a resident, we really strongly encourage you to reach out to any of us or participate in any of those opportunities.
Great.
Yep. And I would just say that if the City Council does put forward any changes to the charter, it would be considered by a vote during the April 2026 annual meeting.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Great.
Yeah, that's really, we should clarify it. Our role is really, we're recommending.
Recommending to the City Council, and then they're going to decide.
And we'll do that on December 10th.
Yeah, I think it's December 10th. Yeah, great. Then also, just so the community has a handle on how it works from there too, the charter is approved by the state legislature. All municipal charters are approved by the state legislature. So our annual meeting is in April, so any changes that go forward, they will be on the annual meeting ballot. If any of them are approved for changes in our charter, we will then go to the state legislature. And so it's actually quite unlikely that this year, 2026, changes would happen. It's more than likely that the legislature would consider those in their 27 session. So, but these things take a long time, so it's really great to take advantage right now and participate in these conversations right now, really to help influence what goes on those ballot questions, because those are really just going to be yes or no. This is the opportunity to kind of think a little bit more in detail about some of these. And for example, if the Charter Change Review Committee is put into the charter more frequently? Is it 10 years or is it some other time frame? Okay. So we've also got all of this information up on the website. So that is the website. You can find the survey up there. You can find some more information about each of these different topics and things that the governance committee has been thinking through. And anything else?
I think so.
Thanks so much for having us, Regina.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking the time. It is a helpful way to get this out to the community. We will post this as well now once this is up and running. And I'm trying to think. Sometimes I have some other tidbits to talk about from the city. I don't have anything at front of mind right now. So thanks so much for joining.
Thanks
and
again.
We'll see folks at the next Junction City News.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.